Sig 2-3. This is, for the meantime, 10 February 2021, and I am catching up with all the Ford Observer reports. Let me center this better. Let me center this. Even better. So, political warning. Equity becomes Biden buzzword. The Biden administration is increasingly using the term equity in its policy descriptions as opposed to equality. Last week, for instance, President Biden signed an executive order that would advance racial equity. Quote, "I believe this nation and this government need to change the whole approach to the issue of racial equity," he said, underscoring the term. During the Senate hearing last week, Senator Tom Cotton, Republican, Arkansas, asked Housing and Development Secretary nominee Martha Fudge about the difference between equality and equity. Fudge responded by illustrating that a $5 gift would have a different value for a poor person than a wealthy person. That's not really an answer, but all right. Observers note, prior to the election, then Senator Kamala Harris noted that under equality, everyone is treated fairly. The problem with that, she noted, is that not everybody's starting out from the same place. The Biden campaign repeatedly outlined policies that would be favorable towards minority-owned businesses and that the administration would achieve racial equity in management, training, and higher education. Republican upstart seeks party purge of Trumpism. Representative Adam Kinzinger, Republican, Illinois, launched the Country First Political Action Committee in efforts to, quote, take back our country, end quote, by first severing GOP ties with former President Donald Trump. Kinzinger was one of 10 Republican members of the House who voted to impeach Trump and has offered support to Republicans who vote to convict Trump in this month's Senate trial. Kinzinger complained to Chuck Todd on NBC's Meet the Press that he was being canceled by a Republican Party still very much beholden to Trump. Over the weekend, protesters in his home state of Illinois called Kinzinger a traitor as the state Republican Party debates a censure vote. Representative Liz Cheney, Republican Wyoming, also came under heavy criticism over her public opposition to Trumpism and her vote to impeach. Meanwhile, there's an effort building against Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican Georgia, over incendiary comments and outspoken support for Trump. At least some Georgia Republicans are worried that if nothing is done, Greene could boost opposition to Republicans in 2022 elections when Stacey Abrams is expected to again run for Georgia governor. Some Democrats have called for Greene's expulsion from Congress. Observers note, Trump's Senate trial is set to begin next week. This is about a week old or so. And he's unlikely to be convicted according to expected vote counts. Given the pushback against Kinzinger and Cheney, Trump is unlikely to be unseated as the party's ideological leader anytime soon. Prior to leaving office, Trump launched the Save America Political Leadership Action Committee, which will be used to support pro-Trump candidates in 2022 elections and ensure Trump has a voice in party politics. Okay. Low-intensity conflict in some. Leftists warn of increasing federal law enforcement presence. Anarchist bloggers and leftist chat room participants are reporting a new wave of FBI harassment of anti-fascists across the country that began last week. They reported several, quote, confirmed reports of FBI contact, end quote, with anti-fascists in Oregon, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Arizona, and in several prisons. Observers note, while the new domestic terrorism campaigns are largely aimed towards white nationalists, Leftist groups are bound to be targeted for investigations and arrests as well for their role in disruptive demonstrations and violence against law enforcement. Many on the far left are concerned that expanded federal law enforcement action against anti-state groups pose a threat to their plans for disruptions under the Democrat-controlled government. We can say that this is the beginning of a major domestic violent extremist campaign against leftist groups, especially since the focus is primarily on right-wing and white identitarian groups, but the Biden administration is putting considerable effort into countering domestic violent extremism in general. Washington leftists seize hotel and clash with law enforcement. On Sunday, a couple of Sundays past, approximately 45 leftists of Oli Housing Now rushed the Red Lion Inn and Suites in Olympia, Washington, assaulted employees, and forcibly occupied the building. The situation quickly resulted in a standoff with the Olympia Police Department, which responded with approximately 100 officers. Guests and employees of the hotel sheltered in the basement and in their rooms until police raided the building late in the evening. They reported that several anti-fascists were armed with hatchets, knives, batons, gas masks, and other equipment. A supporting group of leftists gathered outside police lines, harassed officers, and assaulted journalists attempting to film the scene. Anti-fascists have set up multiple bail and legal aid funding channels in response to several hotel occupiers being arrested. One suspected Olympia anti-fascist organizer responded on social media and stated that more support will be needed in the coming months to expand these campaigns. Observers note, far-left efforts to block evictions or sweeps of homeless camps have preceded the formation of several autonomous zones over the past year. The leftist proto-insurgency seeks to foster a rebellion from populations in the greatest of need and with the least amount to lose. Black Lives Matter organizing open-ended demonstration in Mississippi. Black Lives Matter is organizing upcoming demonstration in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, following a police-involved shooting of a 14-year-old male. Organizers are calling for activists, street medics, and legal observers to rally at Hattiesburg's City Hall every day at 10 a.m. to support demands for the resignation of the officer involved in the shooting. Observers note, far-left groups will continue to exploit any suspected or confirmed police-involved shootings as a springboard for disruptions through 2021. Events in smaller cities such as Hattiesburg are likely to be amplified among far-left groups as they continue to push for building their movement beyond major metropolitan areas. Leftists exchange lessons learned with Russian demonstrators. Far-left chat room participants are exchanging lessons learned from anti-state demonstrators and insurgents in Russia. Pardon me. Specifically, they posted a top 10 rules for future disruptions. These included utilizing encrypted messaging applications, swarming law enforcement efforts who attempt to make arrests, obstructing roads with debris, and destroying burner phones following disruptions. Observers note, American leftists frequently analyze foreign uprisings to improve their ability to communicate, organize, counter law enforcement, and propagandize incidents. Specifically, they have focused on the social unrest in Europe and Southeast Asia last year into this year. Lastly, far-left intelligence support mapping out police and military installations. Leftist intelligence support teams are mapping out police precincts, military installations, and prisons across New York City. Leftist intelligence support groups continue to utilize all available methods to track, map, and monitor government forces in major cities. This will allow them to better evade confrontations with law enforcement during public disruptions. All right, that is it for that report. All right, SIG 23 out. Next one's coming up.